Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Ron, hoping that everyone is doing well in these trying times. Today, I wanted to go over some ideas with you, dispel a few myths of some of the things that I've been doing for many, many years in the area of hypnosis. A lot of people have fear of hypnosis when it's such a natural thing to do, and yet people won't go to a hypnotist when they could be helped tremendously by one. Um, it's an interesting history. Back in the 1800s, when Mr. Mesmer was around, he was a physician during his years, and he stumbled on this thing that he called mesmerism, but he had it just a little bit off. He thought it was some kind of a fluid within the system that some people could control over others, and by so doing, he could affect a lot of the conditions that an individual had on a physical, mental, or emotional level. And he was quite successful. He trained a lot of people in it. It spread like wildfire, even though he was dispelled from the medical community, essentially as a quack. But his work went on, and there were some people that tried to dispel anything that had to do with any kind of a cure with mesmerism. And there was one doctor by the name of James Braid, and he was intent on dispelling the idea that it worked and that it had any validity in medicine. And he was working with a woman that he was very successful with getting into a quote unquote trance. I don't like that word and I never use it in my sessions, but back then it was the word to use. So this woman is in, I would say, probably the very deep theta ranges or delta in the brainwave, and she was able to talk to him and give him insight into her body and the body's conditions. And as he's making notes, he makes a note that she was in a deep hypnotic state. Well, the word hypnosis itself means sleep, but in the modern day application of it, it's the absolute furthest from sleep that one could get. It's a fascinating procedure that is so simple, it's so easy to do, and I'll cover some of those things in a few minutes. But from that moment on, because he wrote it up and he submitted a paper to the English Medical Society, it stuck. The word hypnosis stuck from that point till this, and it's here for a long, long time. Even though many people try to change it and call it something else, it's still hypnosis. And then along came another British physician, a man by the name of James Esdile. And back in the day, physicians used to have to do a tour of duty in one of the British colonies. And James was sent to India. And he worked in India. He cataloged over 300 cases that he worked with of deep intrusive surgery and amputations using nothing more than suggestion or hypnosis. He brought those back to the United Kingdom with him, back to England, and he wrote up the paper. He delivered that paper in person to a congregation of physicians, and he was pretty much laughed out of the hall. But his work was phenomenal at the time. It was groundbreaking. And hypnosis would have been the go-to for anesthesia if it hadn't been for the ether at the time. Hypnosis takes a little bit of time with most people, at least a few minutes to get into that state. And it seems that not everyone is able to get into the state that is needed for deep intrusive surgery or amputation. But ether came along and it was so easy just to drip a few drippings of the stuff over a cloth over one's nose, put them to sleep, do the operation, and they were out of it. But bringing it up to normal, or I would say modern times, And hypnosis has had its ups and downs over the years. And one of the things that has fascinated me to no end has been the idea of stage hypnosis. And when hypnosis would go underground for a while, stage hypnotists always kept it in the public's eye. And they did some good work, but they instilled a tremendous amount of fear in people. It was the illusion that they could control your mind up on that stage and make you do anything that they wanted you to do, which in fact is a misnomer. They can't. When you think about what the stage hypnotist does, it's 99 times out of 100, it's in a setting of a lounge somewhere. People are out to have a good time. They volunteer for the fun of it. And because they volunteered for the fun of it, they've made themselves susceptible to the things that the hypnotist asks them to do. And if you ever really watch a program where a hypnotist calls people just cold out of the audience, and that's really not a true statement, cold out of the audience, because just about every one of them will set the audience up first by doing, for 15 or 20 minutes, a lot of talking. And he's looking in the crowd at the people that he's going to choose, he or she is going to choose to come up on the stage. And normally they'll get 10, 12 people, and then they start to eliminate them. And what they're looking for, within about 15 to 20 minutes, or even a little bit more, they will have weeded out probably half of the people that they ask to come up on stage. And who they wind up with is fascinating. It is the ones that are highly susceptible to suggestion. And those are the ones that the hypnotist wants to work with because they're the ones that are going to give the most laughs. They are deep level subjects, what we call somnambulists or profound somnambulists. And when it comes to entertainment, those are certainly the ones that you want up on that stage. It's fascinating, but I've never really gotten into the entertainment side of it. Anytime I've been called over the years to do a lecture on it or demonstrations, I always told them that I would rather educate than demonstrate. And it always comes out in the end to be the beneficial thing to do because dispelling of the myths. And I'll usually bring one or two people up on the stage or by the podium because I'm usually not on a stage when I'm asked to come into an organization and do a demonstration. I'll bring a few people up and I'll show them how easy it is. It's such a natural state. And when people begin to understand that, they're more apt to go to a hypnotist for the conditions that the hypnotist could help them with. And they are so numerous. Many, many things. Over the years, I've worked from A to Z, as they say, with conditions that an individual couldn't go to an MD and take care of through pills or what have you. You've got 4 brainwave levels that we all work with, and I like to demonstrate by simply pointing out that every night before you go to bed, you do a preparation. Look at your wife, your girlfriend, look at yourself if you're a woman, and what takes place? What do you go through? Well, while you're going through that ritual, your mind is shifting from the beta, which is the wakened state. That's where you're most of the time during the day, in the beta awareness. Then you drift into a light state of alpha. Do you know it? No, none of us do. It's not something that's very prominent. We don't know when we're going there as a rule, but we do that because of the ritual of preparing for bed. Then by the time we crawl into bed, we've gone into a little bit of a deeper state of that alpha. And finally, we go into the quote-unquote unconscious state. That's another word that I don't use when I'm in session with someone, because they think of the unconscious as being out of it. And you're not out of it when you're in hypnosis. Of course, when you're asleep, you are. You're unconscious. That's the whole idea behind sleep. It's a recuperative state, and you wake up the next morning, unless you got problems sleeping, you wake up refreshed. Well, you go through the theta from the alpha, where you dream at night, and then you go back into the alpha, back into the theta, and you'll go into the really deep stages of sleep, what is referred to as the delta brainwave level. Those are the very deepest levels. And this seems to be the absolute best individuals to work with when it comes to any kind of surgery. When they're capable of going into deep theta or light delta, they're capable of pretty much any type of surgery, but most doctors are afraid to do anything with that because of their high cost of insurances. But one person, another person, two different individuals will respond two different ways to the idea of suggestion. And that's all that hypnosis is. If you want to sum it up in one word that most people would understand, it's suggestion. Highly suggestive people can walk into a hypnotist's office, walk out, and never smoke again. Walk out and change their eating habits. Walk out and sleep excellent. Those are the few and far between. Most people will require a number of sessions, but you're never out of control when you're in that state of hypnosis. You remain, to a certain extent, conscious of what's going on. And I say to a certain extent. When you allow the hypnotist to hypnotize you for whatever reason you're there for, your conscious mind takes a back seat. And while it's doing that, it's observing what's going on, and the subconscious mind is left open to accept or to reject any of the suggestions that are there for your best and highest good. And this is what makes it such an effective tool. My specialty happens to be regressive hypnosis, taking people into their past to uncover the issues that are causing problems today. And I won't get into that part of it right now. I'll save that for another time, because that in itself is quite in depth. But I would certainly encourage anyone out there that's considering hypnosis, or maybe even never thought about hypnosis, for a number of things. Anything that a psychologist could do for you, a hypnotist can more than likely do better. And I say that only because the hypnotist uses that tool. If they're in full-time practice, they use it exclusively. Where psychologists normally, they have just a cursory knowledge, if you will, of hypnosis. They'll attempt to use it. If the person's not successful, they'll say, well, you're not a good hypnotist subject. And that is not usually the case, because everybody can be a good hypnotist subject. But the psychologist, they don't use it enough in most cases to be proficient with it. And 40 plus years in the profession, using the state of hypnosis to explore the subconscious mind is one of the most fascinating things I could ever think of doing in my life. So if anyone is curious, if anyone would like more information, you can message me. I'm not sure exactly how this works. My buddy, Sam, who does all of the preparation to put it out there on the YouTube, he's the one that knows, and he reads the comments that come back. So make comments. He'll set me up with those comments, and I'll be able to do an entire session with you on the questions that you have, and hopefully shed some light on it. So until the next time we meet, this is Dr. Ron saying stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll be on the radio with you soon.